Hello, welcome to another Burgundy with Tweedy video, and this is something a bit different from the usual set of villages, and in fact it's a bottle of wine in some senses I didn't actually buy, or at least I didn't intend to buy. I put in an order with Lay and Wheeler. I've probably done 7-8 orders with them now, I think, and they're usually half a dozen bottles each time, and they're generally pretty good. This is the first time anything has ever gone wrong. I ordered a Gevrey Chambertin 2019 of a particular vineyard from Roty. They got the vintage right, and they almost got the name of the vineyard right, but the village was different. So this actually is a Marsannay, not a Gevrey Chambertin. And the vineyard is Etienne. I forget now what I actually ordered, but it was a roughly similar, is it I'll put it on the screen, I can't remember off the top of my head. It was a similar sounding vineyard in Gevrey Chambertin, and somehow they managed to get the bottles mixed up. So it arrived, it was wrong, and I immediately got in touch with them by email, explained the situation. They actually offered to just have me return it, which sounded like a lot of effort because I then have to wait in for other courier and all that stuff, and they would just give me a full refund for this individual bottle. So I instead suggested, why don't they just refund me the difference in the price, which turned out to be complicated because they didn't actually list this wine that arrived. They did list the wine that I thought I was buying, so there is a fixed price on their website for that. But they didn't actually list this, so they sort of came up with a slightly fictitious figure for the difference initially, and then I had to negotiate and say, oh, hold on a minute, this is a significantly cheaper wine than what I thought I was buying. So I think the one that I'd ordered would have been just shy of £60. It was a Gevrey Chambertin, as is typical. Whereas Marsannay, for some reason, even though it's a village which is just slightly to the north in the Côte de Nuit, it always seems to be much cheaper. I don't fully understand why. It just doesn't have quite such a strong reputation. I don't think it has any Grand Cru vineyards, is that right? And possibly doesn't even have any Premier Cru, I'm not sure. I've tried one or two wines from Marsannay before. Haven't really been that excited by them generally. It feels to me as though they're lacking a bit of the power and concentration and seriousness of Gevrey Chambertin. They came across a bit light. The standard price for this should have been more like £35 to £40, something like that. Thought it might be an interesting experiment to try a different village for once, a Marsannay. But I do like this producer, Gevrey Chambertin. Had some nice wines from them, and 2019 is a vintage I know I like as well. Perhaps this might be a pleasant surprise. Perhaps I've accidentally stumbled upon a bargain here. Who knows? Rinse the glass out with some water just now. That's why it doesn't look perfectly clean and dry. It is clean, it's just not dry. A colour somewhere in the middle, I suppose. Has a nice bit of a sheen to it, sort of partially translucent, maybe slightly over towards the dark side. I have seen a few from 2019 go slightly dark like this, sort of crimsony. But yes, I don't think anything's looking too untoward, at least visually so far. Before any swirling, I suppose there are some familiar red and black fruits there. I might be thinking of blackberry, perhaps, to start off with a bit of other red berry fruit mixed in there. Possibly somewhere in that spectrum between the blackberry and the raspberry. Is that the Loganberry? I believe David for a while was constantly trying to get me to describe something as Loganberry in character. Perhaps that's going to be appropriate for once. Mixture of red and black fruit on the nose there. But the most identifiable thing to me is probably blackberry. And that's certainly something I have encountered and experienced in Gevrey Chambertin, particularly from this vintage in recent wines. Nothing so far is telling me that this is from some other completely different terroir, alien to Gevrey Chambertin. Yeah, more of the same after a swirl. And overall that is a fruity nose, and it's quite pleasant. It's not yet, to me, doing a lot more. Basically just fruity on the nose, but pleasantly so. I'm not complaining. On the palate, that's perhaps a little drier, maybe even thinner. Not exactly thin in texture, but in terms of volume and weight, little bit drier and slightly more austere than I might have expected given that nose. I was expecting something a bit more sort of luscious and blackberry-ish. Definitely a bit of a tannic sensation there in that dryness as well. It's like sort of rough, papery sort of tannic feel. But second sip, getting used to the tannins a little bit more. Still there, still a little bit dry, still a little bit papery. But it does have a pleasant, fruity sort of profile to it. Again, I think with those red-black fruits, the blackberry and loganberry maybe and raspberry, that sort of thing. It's certainly not sort of light and insubstantial, but I would say that doesn't immediately have the kind of richness and concentration of a Gevrey Chambertin. And I've tried several from this vintage and from this producer, so I think I have an idea of both the house style and what I expect from that vintage, and this isn't a million miles from Gevrey Chambertin as discussed. But the 2019 Joseph Roty, the village level Gevrey Chambertin, for example, was quite rich and quite concentrated as I recall it. This is a little drier and austere. Almost sounds unfair, but I can't think of another antonym to rich. It is a bit lighter, although, as I say, with some pleasant fruit character and a bit more tannin, and quite a different thing, I think, from the from how I imagined the wine that I thought I was ordering would have been. Very glad that I pushed them on that partial refund there. Hints of black currant there as well, in addition to the blackberry, for what difference it makes. Yeah, it's okay. I think this is something how I remember Marsannay from the very limited times I've tried it before, and perhaps it's not a representative sample, but I did get the sense that it didn't have quite the same kind of richness, concentration, power, intensity that Gevrey Chambertin tends to have. So you get similar sort of fruit expression, possibly, but it's all just a bit more sort of light, not quite so intense and concentrated. I think I'm just repeating myself a bit, aren't I? It's okay, and I think that would retail for something like 35 quid. Is that a reasonable price? I mean, Burgundy terms, probably yes. But if that is typical of Marsannay, I'm sure there are other examples where it expresses quite differently. But if that's typical, then I think I'm still reasonably happy for now staying just a tiny bit further south in Gevrey Chambertin most of the time. However, an interesting experiment to try something different. I'll probably stop talking now. I think I'm just going to end up saying the same things over and over again. Cheers.